For 10 years I worked multiple jobs, saved every penny, and dreamed of buying my own house. I thought my parents were proud of my discipline and hard work. Little did I know they had other plans. The day I was ready to make an offer, I discovered they had withdrawn all $390,000 from my account. When my father noticed my shock, he mockingly said, "Thanks for your naivety. Your money has now secured your brother's bright future." I could not hold back my laughter, because the money they took was actually the wrong bait. If you are enjoying this story so far, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Now let me tell you how this all unfolded. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, it was clear from an early age that my parents favored my younger brother Jackson. No matter what achievements I accomplished, they were overshadowed by whatever Jackson was doing at the time. When I won first place in the state science competition, my parents barely acknowledged it because Jackson had scored the winning goal in his junior league soccer game the same weekend. Their refrigerator was plastered with his artwork and sports photos, while my academic certificates were tucked away in a drawer. My grandmother was the only one who truly saw me. She lived just a few blocks away, and I would often escape to her house when the favoritism at home became too much to bear. She was a retired financial advisor who had built her own wealth through smart investments and frugality. Grandmother would tell me, "Isaiah, your worth is not measured by their attention, but by the character you build and the wisdom you gain." She taught me about saving, investing, and the value of financial independence. When I turned 16, she helped me open my first bank account and showed me how to create a budget. "Your money is your freedom," she would say. "Never let anyone take control of it but you." I took those words to heart, not knowing how prophetic they would prove to be. After high school, I got accepted to the University of Washington with a partial scholarship. My parents contributed minimally to my education, saying they needed to save for Jackson's future. I worked part-time jobs throughout college to cover the remaining tuition and living expenses. Despite the workload, I graduated with a degree in computer science, landing an entry-level position at a growing tech company in Seattle. Instead of upgrading my lifestyle like many of my colleagues, I remembered my grandmother's teachings. I continued to live in a modest apartment with a roommate. I drove the same used car I had in college. While my coworkers splurged on fancy restaurants and weekend trips, I prepared meals at home and picked up additional freelance work on evenings and weekends. At 22, I opened a special savings account dedicated to my future home purchase. Every month, I automatically transferred a substantial portion of my salary into this account. Any bonuses, tax refunds, or extra income went straight into savings. I tracked my progress meticulously, watching with satisfaction as the balance grew year after year. By age 32, after a decade of disciplined saving and several promotions at work, I had accumulated $390,000. It was enough for a substantial down payment on a home in the Seattle area, even with the city's notoriously high real estate prices. I felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that my dream of homeownership was finally within reach. I began working with a realtor named Amanda, who helped me search for the perfect property. After viewing dozens of houses over several months, I finally found a charming 3-bedroom craftsman home in a desirable neighborhood with good schools and a short commute to my office. The moment I walked through the front door, I knew this was the place where I wanted to build my future. The asking price was $750,000. With my savings, I could make a down payment of over 50%, resulting in a manageable mortgage that I could comfortably afford with my current salary. I ran the numbers repeatedly, creating a detailed spreadsheet that calculated my monthly payments, insurance costs, property taxes, and maintenance expenses. Everything aligned perfectly with my financial plan. Excited about the prospect of making an offer, I shared the news with my grandmother. She was thrilled for me and offered to help with the closing costs as a housewarming gift. I did not tell my parents or Jackson about the house, yet planning to surprise them only after the purchase was finalized. Throughout the years, I had been vague about my financial situation, when talking to them, not wanting to invite comparisons or requests for money. A week before I was planning to make an offer on the house, my parents invited me over for Sunday dinner. These family gatherings were often stressful for me, but I agreed to go wanting to maintain some semblance of a relationship with them. During dinner, Jackson announced that he was planning to start his own business, a premium dog grooming service that would cater to upscale clients in Seattle. My brother, now 29, had bounced between various jobs since dropping out of college 6 years earlier. He had worked as a barista, a rideshare driver, a personal trainer, and most recently as an assistant at a pet salon. None of these positions had lasted more than a year, but he spoke about this new venture with unprecedented enthusiasm. My parents were instantly supportive, praising his entrepreneurial spirit and innovative ideas. Then the conversation shifted to financing. Jackson needed around $300,000 for leasing a commercial space, purchasing equipment, hiring staff, and marketing. My parents expressed disappointment that they could not provide the full amount, having recently renovated their home and taken a luxury cruise to Alaska. All eyes turned to me. My father cleared his throat and said, "Family should support each other, Isaiah. You have always been good with money. Surely you must have some savings that could help your brother get started." I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach, the same sensation I experienced whenever they tried to make me feel guilty for not prioritizing Jackson. I politely declined, explaining that my savings were allocated for my own future plans. While I did not specify the house, I made it clear that I was not in a position to invest in my brother's latest scheme. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, and my mother gave me that look of disappointment I had grown accustomed to over the years. The rest of the dinner was tense, with pointed comments about selfish individualism versus family loyalty. As I drove home that night, I felt guilty despite knowing I had made the right decision. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, if perhaps I should help Jackson. But another part, the one shaped by my grandmother's wisdom, reminded me that enabling his pattern of jumping from one idea to another without commitment would not truly help him in the long run. 3 days before my scheduled meeting with the real estate agent to make an offer on the house, I logged into my bank account to verify the funds for the down payment. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the balance $0.00. There must be some mistake, I thought, frantically refreshing the page. But the number did not change. I immediately called the bank, my hands shaking as I navigated through the automated system to reach a customer service representative. The woman who answered confirmed my worst fear. The entire balance of $390,000 had been withdrawn 3 days earlier. When I insisted that I had made no such withdrawal, she pulled up the transaction details. The account was emptied via an in-person withdrawal at a branch across town, she explained. According to our records, it was authorized using proper identification and account verification. I felt sick as she continued. The withdrawal was made by Janet Walker, who is listed as having power of attorney on this account. Janet Walker, my mother. I suddenly remembered that when I first opened a bank account as a teenager, my mother had been added as a joint account holder. When I opened my home savings account at the same bank, years later that authorization had apparently carried over. I had never thought to remove her access, never imagining she would betray me this way. I drove straight to my parents' house, adrenaline and fury propelling me through the evening traffic. When I arrived, my mother opened the door, her expression immediately changing from welcome to discomfort when she saw my face. I pushed past her into the living room where my father and Jackson were watching a football game. "What have you done with my money?" I demanded, my voice shaking with rage and disbelief. My father calmly muted the television and turned to face me, his demeanor unnervingly composed. Jackson looked confused, but there was a hint of something else in his expression. Anticipation, perhaps. "We did what was necessary for this family," my father replied coldly. "Your brother has a real opportunity here, one that could secure his future. You have a stable job and can always save more money." This was about fair distribution of resources. "Fair distribution," I repeated incredulously. "You stole $390,000 that I spent 10 years saving." My mother interjected, her voice quavering slightly. "We did not steal anything. That money was in a joint account. We just redistributed family resources to where they are needed most." Besides, you're always so frugal, living below your means. You can save it again, in no time. Jackson finally spoke up, his tone a mixture of defensiveness and entitlement. Look, Isaiah, I know you're upset, but try to see the bigger picture. This business is going to be huge. Once it takes off, I will pay you back with interest. Think of it as an investment in the family. My father, apparently tired of the pretense, let out a dismissive laugh. His face twisted into a smirk that I will never forget. Thanks for your naivety, Isaiah. Your money has now secured your brother's bright future. Consider it compensation for all the attention you think we gave him instead of you all these years. I stood there, taking in the full weight of their betrayal. These people who were supposed to love and protect me had conspired to steal my dreams. 10 years of sacrifice, of declining vacations and social outings, of working evenings and weekends, all gone in an instant. The house I had fallen in love with, that I had planned to make a home, now beyond my reach. And then, to everyone's surprise, including my own, I started laughing. It began as a small chuckle and grew into full-blown laughter that brought tears to my eyes. My family stared at me, clearly disturbed by this unexpected reaction. What's so funny? My father demanded, his smugness giving way to uncertainty. You took the wrong bait, I managed between laughs. What are you talking about? Jackson asked, a hint of panic creeping into his voice. My mother stepped forward, her face pale. Isaiah, what do you mean by wrong bait? I composed myself enough to say, you will find out soon enough. Then I turned and walked out, leaving them in confused silence, their momentary triumph already beginning to crumble. What my family did not know, what my grandmother had wisely advised me about years earlier, was that I had created a sophisticated financial setup to protect my assets. My actual savings were not kept in the account my parents accessed. That account was essentially a decoy part of a complex financial arrangement designed to detect and trap unauthorized access. The real money was safely held in another bank, entirely under an account, with no connection to my parents. The $390,000 they took was actually leveraged funds that were part of a specialized financial product my grandmother had helped me set up. It was designed with specific terms that made the money effectively unusable for anyone but me, and only for the specific purpose of a home purchase. Attempting to use those funds for anything else would trigger a series of legal and financial consequences, including fraud alerts, immediate freeze of the funds, and potential criminal charges for misappropriation. The money was in essence a sophisticated trap that would activate the moment someone tried to use it improperly. As I drove from my parents' house to my grandmother's place, my phone began buzzing with messages. My mother was the first to reach out, her texts growing increasingly desperate, as she likely began to realize something was wrong. My father called repeatedly, but I let each call go to voicemail. Even Jackson sent a message asking what I had meant by taking the wrong bait. I silenced my phone when I reached my grandmother's house. She took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. Over a cup of tea at her kitchen table, I explained everything that had happened. Her initial shock and anger gave way to a grim satisfaction when I explained the financial safety net we had created together. You remembered the lesson about protecting yourself, she said, patting my hand. Most people learn this the hard way, but at least you were prepared. She helped me call my financial advisor and lawyer to set the recovery process in motion. The next day, my brother showed up unannounced at my apartment. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by nervous agitation as he paced my living room. Isaiah, you have to tell me what's going on, he pleaded. Mom and Dad are freaking out. They tried to transfer the money to my business account this morning, but the bank froze everything, and now they're talking about an investigation. I remained calm, watching him unravel before my eyes. Perhaps you should ask them why they thought it was acceptable to steal my life savings, I suggested coolly. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. Come on, man. It was not stealing. They just wanted to help me, and you were being selfish with all that money just sitting there. Just call off whatever this is and we can figure out a repayment plan or something. The fact that he still believed I was somehow in the wrong showed how deeply entrenched the family dynamics were. I told him I had a meeting to get to, and showed him the door, ignoring his continued pleas. My mother was next to attempt reconciliation. She came to my workplace during lunch, causing a scene in the reception area, until I agreed to speak with her briefly. Tears streamed down her face as she begged me to fix the situation. "The bank is saying we could face criminal charges," she sobbed. "We were only trying to help Jackson. We would have paid you back eventually." Her concerns were entirely self-centered, focused on the consequences they might face, rather than the harm they had caused me. There was no genuine remorse for betraying my trust, only fear of what might happen to them. I told her I would consider my options, and ended the conversation. My father took the longest to reach out his pride, apparently making it difficult to admit he had miscalculated so severely. When he finally called again, his initial bluster had been replaced by thinly veiled panic. "Son, we need to discuss this situation reasonably," he said, his voice strained. "Whatever financial trick you've played, it's time to end it. Family disputes should stay within the family." I said nothing, letting him fill the silence with increasingly desperate justifications. Eventually, he too resorted to pleading something I had never heard from my proud father before. It gave me no pleasure to hear the fear in his voice, but I recognized it was not my responsibility to ease his anxiety about consequences he had brought upon himself. The meeting with my financial advisor and lawyer confirmed what I already knew: the funds could be recovered, but there would be significant penalties due to the unauthorized withdrawal. My lawyer laid out several options. I could press criminal charges for theft and fraud, pursue a civil case, or negotiate a private settlement that would avoid court, but still ensure the return of my money. I found myself at a crossroads. Part of me wanted my family to face the full legal consequences of their actions. They had conspired to steal my dreams, and showed no remorse until faced with the repercussions. But another part of me, perhaps, the part still hoping for some form of reconciliation, was hesitant to send my own parents to jail. After careful consideration, I decided on a strategic approach that would achieve justice without unnecessary destruction. My lawyer arranged a formal meeting at his office, inviting my parents and brother, with the clear understanding that this was their opportunity to resolve the situation before legal proceedings began. They arrived looking disheveled and anxious, a stark contrast to their smug confidence during our previous encounter. My father attempted to take control of the conversation immediately, a habit he had relied on throughout his life. But in the formal setting of the lawyer's office, his intimidation tactics fell flat. My lawyer methodically outlined the situation: unauthorized withdrawal of funds, attempted misappropriation, potential charges of fraud and theft, and the possible consequences ranging from substantial fines to prison time. As he spoke, the color drained from my mother's face. Jackson stared at the floor while my father repeatedly loosened his collar as if it were suffocating him. When the lawyer finished, I finally revealed the full extent of their predicament. "The money you took was part of a secured financial instrument, specifically designated for home purchase," I explained. "By attempting to divert it to an unauthorized business venture, you triggered fraud protocols that not only froze the funds, but also initiated an automatic investigation." My father, always looking for leverage, attempted one last manipulation. "We are still your parents," he said. "Do you really want to do this to your family?" I looked him directly in the eyes, my resolve unwavering. "You stopped behaving like family the moment you decided to steal from me. Now you have a choice. Accept my terms for resolution, or I will let the legal process take its course." The terms I presented through my lawyer were comprehensive and non-negotiable. First, they would return every penny of the $390,000 plus interest and penalties incurred due to the unauthorized withdrawal. This amount totaled nearly $420,000. Second, they would sign a legally binding document acknowledging their wrongdoing and waiving any future claims to my financial assets. Third, Jackson would need to secure legitimate employment and contribute a portion of his earnings toward the repayment. And finally, my parents would transfer the deed to a small rental property they owned as collateral until the full amount was repaid. There was resistance, of course. My father tried to negotiate better terms, arguing that the penalties were excessive and the collateral unreasonable. My lawyer calmly reminded him of the alternative criminal charges that would likely result in significant legal fees, restitution, and possible incarceration. Faced with this reality, they reluctantly agreed to all conditions. The agreement was signed that day with a payment schedule that would begin immediately. My parents would need to take a second mortgage on their home to cover the amount of financial burden that would serve as a constant reminder of their betrayal. Jackson, for his part, looked shocked, his entrepreneurial dreams crushed by the consequences of their collective actions. With the resolution in place, I turned my attention back to my original goal, purchasing my dream home. The real money I had saved over those 10 years remained untouched in my secure account. I contacted Amanda, the realtor, explaining that I had encountered a slight delay but was now ready to proceed with the offer. Fortunately, the house was still available, and the sellers accepted my offer of $740,000. As I signed the closing documents 30 days later, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, mixed with lingering sadness about the family relationships that had been irreparably damaged. My grandmother accompanied me to the closing, her presence, a reminder of the genuine support that had guided me throughout my life. The housewarming party was small, just a few close friends, colleagues, and of course, my grandmother. She brought a handmade quilt as a gift, one she had been working on secretly for months in anticipation of this day. As she draped it over the back of my new couch, she whispered, "You did it, Isaiah. You protected yourself and still achieved your dream. I am so proud of you." Rebuilding my relationship with my family proved to be a complex process. I established strict boundaries, allowing only limited contact under specific conditions. My father, whose pride had taken a severe blow, initially maintained his distance. Over time, however, even he began to recognize the gravity of what they had done. During a chance encounter at a local grocery store 6 months later, he awkwardly acknowledged that he had been wrong, the closest thing to an apology his character would allow. My mother made more active attempts to repair our relationship, sending cards and occasionally calling to check in. I responded with polite but measured engagement, unwilling to rush back into a dynamic that had caused me so much pain. Trust, once broken so profoundly, could not be easily restored. Perhaps the most surprising change came from Jackson. The requirement to maintain steady employment to contribute to the repayment had forced him into a consistent work routine for the first time in his adult life. He secured a position at a local pet supply chain, eventually working his way up to department manager. The structure and responsibility seemed to mature him, and he began to view himself and his place in the family differently. During a carefully arranged coffee meeting a year after the incident, Jackson admitted, "I never really saw how unfair everything was until now. I just took it for granted that I deserved more help, more attention, more everything." He paused, staring into his cup. "I am sorry, Isaiah. Not just for the money thing, but for never standing up for you all those years." His apology felt genuine, and while it could not erase the past, it opened a possibility for a different kind of brotherhood in the future, one based on mutual respect rather than competition and entitlement. My own healing journey took time. The betrayal by those I should have been able to trust implicitly left deep emotional scars. For months I struggled with recurring nightmares and a pervasive sense of insecurity. Even simple financial transactions would trigger anxiety as my mind replayed the moment of discovering my empty account. I found support through therapy and a close circle of friends who provided the genuine connection I had always lacked in my family relationships. Gradually, I learned to trust again, though with greater discernment about who earned that trust. My home became a sanctuary, a physical manifestation of my resilience and determination. The most profound lesson from this experience was the understanding that family is not defined solely by blood. True family consists of people who respect your boundaries, celebrate your successes without jealousy, and would never dream of taking what is yours. My grandmother had always embodied these qualities, and now I found them in the chosen family I built around me. I also learned that protecting yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. The financial safeguards my grandmother had helped me establish had been the difference between losing everything and preserving my dreams. In the years that followed, I became an advocate for financial literacy, occasionally speaking at community workshops about the importance of protecting your assets, even from those closest to you. Today my life is filled with genuine connections and hard-earned wisdom. The painful experience with my family, while not something I would wish on anyone, ultimately led me to create stronger boundaries and build a life that truly reflects my values. Sometimes the most important family members are the ones we choose, and the most valuable legacy is not money, but integrity. Have you ever had to protect yourself from people who should have been protecting you? How did you handle that betrayal? And what lessons did you learn? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming family betrayal and finding peace. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of self-love is setting boundaries with those who have proven they cannot be trusted with your heart or your future. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength in your own journey toward healing and wholeness.